Forming an inclusive and strategic partnership permits you the vision to see a diverse perspective, and in sports, it can even act as the winning ingredient for a winning formula. For Nathaniel Cooke, he's constantly leveraging his expertise to develop a strategy and specific work stream. Analytics insights overseeing all aspects of components, including content, client production, and celebrity engagement. As the Director of Strategic Partnerships and Growth for Ruecker Park Street Ball, it's Cooke's job to connect the dots of opportunity for one of the most iconic basketball entertainer classics in America. Cooke joined me this week to have a conversation about diversity in sports and how it can really provide you a winning edge if you're willing to embrace it at the highest level of decision making, both on and off the court. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Cooke began our discussion by outlining the nuts and bolts of his day job and how he defines cultivating sustainable partnerships in sports.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I want to thank you for just having me on this morning. Let's give a little backtrack. I've been with Ruecker Park Street Ball since around 2020. A friend of mine I knew for a couple years, Wayne Swanson. He's the CEO of Ruecker Park Street Ball. He knew my background in sports marketing, branding strategy, and he just tried to. He basically, asked me to come on, be on a team, and help them build out their strategic partnerships and that kind of department and kind of be like the spearhead behind that. So that's what I did and started in 2020. Unfortunately, that's when COVID hit. It put a pause on everything, in the world. So a lot of the momentum that we had going on with the park and some of our partners that we were going to deal with, everything kind of went to a halt. So we had to put everything to the side. Fast forward, maybe about 6-7 months later, the National Basketball Players Association, the NBPA, they decided to renovate our entire park, Ruecker Park. They put about $500,000 in renovation into the park. A$AP Ferg, the rapper A$AP Ferg, that's from Harlem. He designed the whole park. He was the architect behind the visionary behind the park. And we have a brand new park now. And I help spearhead our partnerships that we have with Lids. We have partnership with Adidas now. We have Taj Gibson from the New York Knicks who will be appearing regularly at our events. We just did a tease on social media with Adidas. Donovan Mitchell was in the tease. So we're really excited about all the prospects, all the promotions. We've been featured in the New York Times, the new renovation. So we have a lot of different things going on. It's a lot of momentum. And we just want to keep carrying the momentum into the season and have a great season at 2022 Ruecker Park.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, with all that firepower in terms of brand notoriety, with all those celebrity sort of endorsements, how does that make your job easier, Bobby? I'm curious.
Sure. That's a great question. It makes our job easier because it gives us more validity and credibility in the market. Obviously, when people see, whatever product, service, or whatever entity you have that's attached to, big time names, names that they can attach themselves to or they can resonate with. It just makes our job easier, you know, obtaining partners, obtaining sponsors, obtaining this brand development, all those different things. It helps with that. So that was kind of was a strategy that we wanted to do coming into this year. We wanted to attach ourselves to as many influencers, basketball leagues that we could to help spread the word out there for our upcoming season.
Yeah, and tell me, for those that don't know about Rucker
Mhm.
Park Street Ball, tell me a little bit more about it and why it's so unique.
Yeah, sure. So Ruecker Park Street Ball goes back 50 plus years, not just in New York. It's a staple in the basketball, this world and community. Anybody that you know that plays the game, that aspire to play the game, that have any kind of connection to this great game of basketball has reference and reverence to Rucker Park. Um, it goes all the way back from the great Dr. J, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, Allen Iverson, Stephon Marbury, Lance Stevenson. The names go on and on and on. So many of the beacons of this sport has played at Rucker Park. Um, it's bigger than basketball. It's more of a culture thing as well. And I think this revitalization of the park is just something that everyone is excited about. So when you think of the game of basketball, one of the tenets of the game of basketball is definitely Rucker Park. So if you look on like, you know, old images, Dr. J was playing and people were sitting on the trees watching them, to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like I said, Kevin Durant, Kobe Bryant. They all played there, and I think I don't think I know it's a beacon in the basketball community.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's actually, I was very curious to ask you, when you look at defining leadership in sports, what do you think of, Buddy, in terms of effective leadership in sports, and what does that look like?
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
in your opinion, what does effective leadership look like in sports?
I think effective leadership is accountability. I think is one. I think leading by example, but I think effective leadership in sports is just like how it is on the field, on the basketball court, or whatever way of sport you play. You have to kind of take those same disciplines and translate that to the corporate side or to the business side. Is, you know, everyone's work together. No one's bigger than, there's no iron team. Everyone plays a role. And that's kind of what those principles I try to apply, especially to this position as well. We all work as a team to get the job done. We have tremendous staff of people, tremendous minds, of people that come together. So I think it's very important. The leadership role is lead by example. You know, hold yourself, hold the team accountable, but everybody works together. We win as a team, we lose as a team, and just keep it having that. I think under your umbrella and those kind of philosophies keeps the ball rolling and keep traction and keep business moving.
Yeah, and I know, Buddy, as part of your ongoing portfolio, you also have a marketing company which strategically connects the dots, missing dots between brand and talent. So tell me a little about the marketing company you started, Buddy.
Yeah, sure. So my marketing company is called Mr. Urban Sports and Entertainment LLC. Everybody call it MUSENT, Miss ENT. So it's a basically was a company I started several years ago. I just thought it was a need in the market between they needed someone to connect the brands with the athletes. So a lot of times where I would be the summer league or I'd be, you know, NFL draft combine or just out and about at networking events and things like that, I would see athletes like, hey, you know, I wish I could connect to this brand. I wish I had someone that could kind of be the liaison and help me put a strategy together where I could get this brand's attention. And then on the other side, I always had like brands would come and say, hey, I wish I could attract this guy. Or you could have like a local, say like car dealership was trying to get in touch with a guy that plays for the local team, whether it be the Knicks, the Raptors, whoever it may be. So, you know, things just clicked off in my head and say, hey, you know, how about I'll be the connector and create my own company and connect brands with athletes. And that's kind of how it was started. It's been very fruitful for me. I love it. This is the reason why how I got the Ruecker opportunity was dealing with some people at the Ruecker that was working with me on my MUSENT, and I was able to kind of translate that over. So yeah, so we've been just working, me and my guys, my staff, with MUSENT. We've been connecting a lot of brands with athletes, doing a lot of brand strategy, and it's something that we're really proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. Life is a constant game of networking, isn't it?
Oh yes, your network is your network. I always tell people that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also wondering your thoughts on how we create more opportunities for African Americans in sports, whether it be black coaches or executives. When we look at defining diversity of opportunity for African Americans in sports, what do you think of?
I think that's a great question. I think that we still are lacking in opportunities in sports. Obviously, you can see like what happened in the NFL this year with Brian Flores last year. I think the problem is it always stops at the top. I think that we need more owners. I think that we need more people in leadership positions that look like us, that reflect our values, that reflect our culture, that reflect that, our backgrounds, the difficulty of being a minority. Because what happens a lot of times, people at the top don't look like us, so they're not going to hire someone that doesn't relate to them. So that's why I see that we always see that kind of ceiling, that blockage. I think it starts with these teams and hiring and getting more black ownership, getting more diverse ownership, and having a diverse outlook. And I think that's the only way that it can change because still to this day it's 2022 and we still lack a lot of diversity in our coaching, our GMs, our higher ups, our presidents, our owners. There's still a lack of diversity in those areas. So we definitely have a lot of work to do, but I think it starts from the top up. We need more diversity in the ownership positions, and then everything can trickle the way down.
Yeah, Nathaniel, I do a lot of work with people with disabilities in sports and uh, employment. So I'm curious to also ask you about diversity, equity, and inclusion for disabled athletes in basketball, specifically because a wheelchair basketball has also rise in popularity. So tell me, when you think of diversity, equity, and inclusion for athletes with disabilities, what do you think about it?
I think that's another great question. I think that even though we have made great traction in that, I think that there's still a lot of work to do. I think that we can highlight, athletes with disabilities. Obviously we have the Special Olympics, we have other things going on, but I think that we can do more activities, have more events pertaining to our handicapped brothers and sisters. In sports. I think that's another thing that we can do as well and make it a priority. It has to be something that's be on top of our priority list. And I think it's very fruitful. I think from a business standpoint as well, it makes a lot of sense because handicapped people have a lot of followers. People follow them, their journey, and it's hard to be handicapped and play in sports. It's hard to perfect the skill and also be handicapped. So that's something that we definitely need to highlight. And I think again, it starts at the top, and we need to integrate more of those ideas, facilities for our handicapped partners and brothers and sisters.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we look at building strategic partnerships, what do you think is the first key to forming an effective partnership?
I think the best thing, the first thing is really finding how both sides can align together. It's a win-win. Like I always call it, it's like a balance beam. So it's an art and science behind it. You have to find out how you strategic working with this person makes sense for them and how it makes sense for you. So it's part of that too, putting that science together, communicating that and making it make sense for both you guys. So how I do it is, if I'm looking out to a brand, I'm talking to someone, I always make sure to see, okay, even though we have a need, I want to make sure that we feel the need of our partners as well. And also, too, is selling yourself because before you can sell any brand, any entity or anything that you're with, you have to sell yourself. So I think those are kind of like I say my three pillars for strategic partnerships because you always want to make sure that there's an ask and that there's a reward on each side.
Yeah, and Nathaniel, I'm wondering what your exposure to the NBA and working with athletes in that arena, how does that help you grow in the current role that you have and professionally overall?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think it has helped me understand the dynamics of what really strategic partnerships is and understanding this business development as a whole. I will always say, my time when I worked at the NBA years back, it taught me the business of sports. And what happens is a lot of people work in sports and say, "Oh, are you asking why do you want to work in sports?" It's always because I love sports. I love it. That's not the best answer. You have to understand the business side of sports and what makes sports go, because that's very important. You can love it, but you have to understand the business side. So that's one thing I learned from the NBA and my time there, is really understand the business side of sports. And that's been helping me to transition and to keep climbing up in my career, is understanding that business side of sports.
Yeah, and when we look at the session that you had, I'm wondering your thoughts on how you define your passion and purpose for what you do.
I think my passion and purpose is obviously me being obviously African American man. I just want to represent diversity in sports on both folds. I want to let people know that you can make it in sports, and you don't always have to be on the actual playing side of sports. We've always been programmed to know that, hey, if you're of a diverse background, black, handicapped, whatever it may be, you come from a diverse background, you can't never get to the corporate side of sports. You either have to learn how to, shoot a jump shot, catch a football, hit a baseball, do whatever to make it in sports. I just want to change that narrative, that there's a new wave of people that understand the business side, the corporate side of sports. So that's kind of what pushes me daily and motivates me, is just creating that image that, hey, you can work in sports. You don't have to be able to dunk or be able to throw a football. You can do the business side, use your mind to make a living in sports.
Yeah, Nathaniel, I'm wondering your thoughts on how important self-motivation and being a self-starter is in the work that you do.
Yeah, most of what motivates me, obviously my family, obviously that, but also what motivates me is that I think there's a group of people behind me that's younger than me that is looking to get into the same field and the realm that I am. So I just try to be a beacon for them. Also, I just want to let people know too, is that you don't always have to go the big route. So a lot of people feel like, oh, to be in sports, I have to work at the NFL, the NBA, or Clutch Sports or CAA. It's like, with the influence of technology and just, strategy and all these different platforms we have now that you can utilize, you can really start your own from the ground up, you know what I mean, and align yourself with the right people, and you can even make traction that way as well. So if you look like 20, 30 years ago, and even not maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, to get in sports, you had to get, that big stamp, you had to get into the big entities, like I stated before, but now, you can kind of build it up yourself.
Yeah, and when we look at sports and the vehicle is to help athletes sort of transition out of poverty and build a better future for themselves, how do you think it's improved over the years? And how do you think people are better using their platform in sports to build a bridge of prosperity for them?
I think these new wave of athletes over the last few years, I would always say LeBron James kind of led that new wave. But I think athletes now know, like, being an athlete is great on the court, on the field, or whatever, your profession is, but they want to get into the business side. They want to be philanthropists. They want to be business owners. They want to, build their own empires outside of what they do an actual sport. So I think that transition is very big. I think that we see more personalities now. I see that we see more athletes that have a lot of business ambitions. So I think it's dope. I think it's great that now, they know that they actually are more than athletes. They can speak on social issues. All those things I think are very imperative.
Yeah, absolutely. And since you brought it up, I'll ask you a minute. It was recently reported that LeBron became a billionaire. So, how much of inspiration or aspiration do you think it is for other athletes to aspire to a career after their playing days are over?
I think it's very inspiring. I think that LeBron laid the blueprint out, obviously, of being a billionaire, and he didn't make all his billions of dollars on a basketball court. Obviously, he made a great amount of his money on, but he made a lot of his money on business deals, on having a great team around him, Matt Carter, Rich Paul, Paul Rivera, all those guys around him. And he created his business vehicle, his business tycoon, where he was able to transition to a billionaire. So I think it's just great to know too, and it's a great example of a case study as well, is that if you want to get to billionaire, if you want to be at that status, you got to make business opportunities, business plays outside of the world of sports.
Yeah, and when we look at athletes having a platform to influence social justice issues, I'm wondering your thoughts on if you think they have to do a better job of sort of going to the forefront of this social justice issues in order to bring about change?
That's another great question. I think athletes do a lot. I think, like I said, this influx of new generation of athletes, I think, are way more vocal. Obviously, they're married now with social media. They have several different, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all the different platforms allow athletes' voices to be heard. And I just think athletes, just like I said again, they just know that they are more than athletes. They have a right to be vocal about, things outside of their professional sports, whether it be, politics, race, police, economy, whatever going on, they have more of a right to say things. They have more of leverage and that green light. So I think they're utilizing it, and I think all the athletes are really doing a great job with it.
Yeah, and Nathaniel, when you look at goal setting for yourself, I'm wondering if you have principles or a motto that you live by when you set a goal, either personally or professionally.
Yeah, what I do is my motto always live by. I always say your relationships are your currency. So it's something I just believe, like your relationships is your currency. So it was just something I kind of learned early on that I've kind of observed and took on with me. It's a relationship business. It's always about, maybe who who you don't know, who can make a phone call, who can reach out to. So I always want to say you always want to maintain solid relationships, because when the times come, that relationship can get you to the next tax bracket, get you your project green lighted, get things pushed through. So I will always say that. I always tell people is your relationships are your currency. So always maintain strong relationships.
Yeah, Nathaniel, there's nothing wrong with making some extra cheddar cheese, right?
No, you know that. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And tell me, what do you think is the key to building authentic relationships that last, buddy?
I think that's another great question. I think the best thing is keeping your word, being honest and transparent. I think that's the most important thing. Just through my career, and I've seen that a lot of people lack transparency and just being full of, and just honest and saying what you're going to do and what you can do, and managing expectations. I think that's the biggest thing. When you create fruitful partnerships, strategic partnerships, you want to manage expectations and just execute on what you say you're going to do. And people value that. People will remember that. I think it's so key and so ideal. Just say what you're going to do. If you say you're going to do something, do it, and just manage the expectations. And that's all I think people are looking for through strategic relationships.
Yeah, there's value in keeping your word, isn't there?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And, Nathaniel, my final question for you this morning has to do with your own individual, personal, and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined.
I want it to be defined as obviously a man of honor, obviously a high business acumen, but also just someone that did it the right way. Someone that took the stairs. I didn't take the elevator. I kind of like everything I've done. I've been through trial tested. And someone that just stayed the course. A lot of times, as you know, in life, when we get thrown with left hooks, right hooks, things happen in life. We kind of transition and pivot. I just want to be known as someone that just kept pounding the pavement, kept building his craft, his skill set, and just never and just kept the marathon going. The marathon continues.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I ask you about how people get connected with you, you sparked my interest to ask you this question, buddy. So, how do you think people that are in your line of work and sports marketing and advertising and partnerships in general can overcome adversity successfully?
I think they have to. I always say something because it's going to come. It's just a part of the business. Adversity, pain, tribulation is going to come. But I always tell people, the funny thing about when rain comes, when we get rain in the sky, sunshine comes right after the rain. So I always say that rain is not going to always last. Like, so whatever you're going through, whatever issues you have going on, the turbulence, just fight through it, because on the other side of that, it's going to be, prosperity. And I think the Suns coach Monty Williams said a quote last year. I think it was during the finals, or it could have been the Western Conference Finals. He said everything you want is on the other side of hard. So on that other side of that gate of hard, trying, tribulations, hardship, adversity is everything you want on the other side of that. Prosperity, health, family, wealth, or whatever you want, it's on the other side of that gate. So just stay at it.
Yeah, staying the course is important, isn't it?
Oh, it's key, man. That's 75% of it. I would say 75%, 80%. is obviously, skills, relationships, everything, but 80% is like staying the course and staying at it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nathaniel, tell me if people want to get connected with the Ruecker Street Ball or you personally, what's the best way they can do that, buddy?
Yeah, sure. You can go to ruckerstreetball.com, obviously, or you can, follow me on Instagram. It's Mr. Urban Sports ENT. On Instagram, LinkedIn, Nathaniel Cooke. Any other questions, anything like that, you can always hit me up there. TikTok, Mr. Urban Sports ENT. Answer any questions and inquiries. You can always connect me on there.
Fantastic. Well, Nathaniel, I really appreciate you taking a portion of your weekend telling about your passion and purpose in sports. I want to thank you for your work in building effective strategic partnerships and really being an example for the next generation, buddy. Your work in the space and time on my behalf, buddy, is most appreciated. And I want to thank you for being here this morning.
No problem. Anytime you need me again, you want me for anything else, just give me a call, email me. I'll be right here.